Efilist video. Yeah, compete with the crickets and stuff. I might as well take advantage while it's still almost summer-ish, kind of, not too bad. Anyway, alright, so I was, playing some of the videos on the website, efilist.com, or efilism.com, and, there's one called Bonnie, that's just a description of this argument that you're not really doing anything that's worth the price being paid for you doing it. Um, there's a price paid for our existence here. Lots of organisms, lots of things living and dying, and some of that can be very personal, and certainly it seems like it always has to be cut to something personal, which is sort of annoying, that you can't be, we're not very disciplined in our use of logic or reason or intelligence, especially when it comes to things that are personal. So if I was to say, your life costs, let's say you have a sister and she's going to die horribly over a period of 5 years, and it's just going to be awful. Or she gets killed in some kind of terribly undignified way, raped and murdered and left to die on the side of the road alone. You could analyze your life and just say, gee, it's really not worth it, is it? That's not really an acceptable price. You just say that's unacceptable. And I've sort of tried to make this argument in the past that, we say things are unacceptable, but we accept them. And I guess the word should mean something. I think it does. I'm fairly convinced, and I was fairly convinced quite early on, that there's too much that's unacceptable in the circumstance to ever say, good idea, do it some more. Way too expensive. And that just seems, by preponderance of the evidence as I see the evidence. So again, for a lot of people it just has to be more personal. It has to happen to them. The earthquake or the flood or the whatever. It has to affect the rapist, whatever. It has to affect them. It has to encroach on their life or the thing they care about. It has to be their cat run over. It doesn't matter if it's a cat. It just has to be their cat. And I'm obviously arguing that that's a very flawed way to perceive the world, and that if you're going to be fair to the argument, you have to consider everything in that more personal way, in that where it has a legitimacy, that you're not giving the things you're not personally connected to. I mean, either you have to say the things you care about aren't worth it, or, and therefore the other things don't matter either. There's no such thing as a victim. Or you have to just recognize that, yeah, a victim isn't defined by how personally connected you are to it. That a bad event is not bad because it happens to you or somebody you care about. And I guess this is another one of these examples where, from my perspective, yeah, I can fully understand, because I know there's a ton of things that are happening to people that if they were happening to me, I would declare it unacceptable. I'd say that's not an acceptable price to pay for the fun, of the life experience. But even that's the context of this argument. That's why life's spelled backwards, because the context is understanding the adventure is just a psychology game. It's just something you're playing out, you're acting out. It's not really a great story. It's just a story of need and desires, and how you, how caught up you are, how fooled you are by your psychology, and it's the narrative it's running of what will define, what will complete you. Yes, you have this delusion that there is completion sitting there and that you will get there. Um, and that's not how the mechanism works. Just isn't. And we're all doomed to some future destruction that may not be in a manner that is all pleasant. Might be quite, again, something you'd find unacceptable. An unacceptably shabby death may be your fate. Clearly people hope for better. Clearly people even delude themselves into thinking somehow I'm going to be lucky. I know it in my heart. You can't know it in your brain, I don't think. But yeah, you know it in some part of your body that's not very good at thinking. That somehow you're going to be immune because you deserve it. Deserve isn't going to help you. It's not about what you deserve. And certainly you can take some risk out of your, I mean, if dying in a plane crash is your definition of a bad way to die, I mean, you can certainly not get on planes, and then you're less likely to die in a plane crash unless the plane, falls on you. But again, this is just all psychology. Again, it's just psychology. It's just the desire psychology, the perception of accomplishment is psychology. None of it has any real integrity as a rational thing. We're just being borged by this animal instinct, by this fundamental nature that just keeps making us horny for more completion, more consumption, something else to consume. I will get there. I will accomplish this. I have a list, and it feels good when I get to first base and then second base and third base. And then, we're just running our bases. And yes, it does feel good. Some of it is fun, but you can understand your brain and understand why your brain is perceiving it as fun. It's because it's made to do that. And it's not because it's intrinsically productive or that there's a real accomplishment. It's just that you're the desert traveler and you see the palm trees and the water is refreshing. And in that moment, you're not too rational. And I guess it's that irrationality carries on as a philosophy. If people think that's when they're thinking their best, and that's when you're thinking your worst. And actually the time when you're seeing life the clearest is when you're the most miserable. Because that's the moment when the desire is as weak as it's ever going to get. The depressed person has a pretty clear view, because the depressed person has a reduction in the passion, and they just can't get it up. They can't get horny for it, and they're not distracted by that notion of I'm going to satisfy something, I'm going to complete something, I'm going to get something. And because there's no food available, they can see the thing for what it is, which is not a buffet table. It's a gurney from which you will be autopsied. You're going to be made into another victim. How far to take this, but I mean the key point is just, if you just look at the reality and just contemplate how much is being disposed of so brutally, and especially in the more mechanical parts of life. I mean, the insects are the dominant species, the dominant form of life, um, and their life is just a brutal um, enslavement to crude, simple objectives, and that's it. There's nothing dignified in any of it. There's nothing gracious in any of it. And maybe they experience some moments of gratification and joy, but what they clearly experience is even their moments of joy will, have an end. I mean, they may even get them drowned or get them, because they don't do things they don't make some decision like I will self-sacrifice. They're just motivated by an impulse, and the impulse overwhelms them, and they are led to the light of the bug zapper. Feels good. They're pleasured by the experience of getting there, but there is no reward. There's a punishment that'll be tied to it. And I think much of the activities they are enslaved to are totally not in their interest. Um, but yet they're motivated to do it because it's what the machine needs to be to survive. It's the tool it needs to have um, to compete effectively. But like I said, it doesn't, even if you assume a substantially diminished consciousness, I mean, it's still all just wasted experience to do something as mundane as just a clock ticking or something so predictable, something so mechanical. And the truth is, though, we're doing the same thing. We're just doing it more complexly, but it's the same formula. It's a box step of a dance. We've just added some funky chicken or whatever. So it's just adding steps, but there's no real addition that matters. It's not substantially different. It's just that it's more complicated. So we think we're doing something other than just swimming upstream or just competing with the Joneses or the Smiths or whatever it is. But that is all we're doing. We perceive ourselves and how well we're doing based on how well others are doing. We fall into these psychological traps all over the place. And they're just mechanical formula. The ingredients, the whole baking process of your identity. You can, if you really are honest and look inside yourself, you'll see yourself doing these very crude, you'll see the very crude elements of your ambition and your desire and even your love and everything you can see, all the that none of it has any real integrity as some sort of thoughtful thing. The elements that are really motivating you are not grace and beauty and dignity and, those big purpose ideas. They're usually something more crude and visceral about having yourself stroked. Just a feeding on the desire mechanism, the ego, and that's it. And you, as an identity, really don't have any control. You're just a puppet to the set of stories running inside your head, the fantasies you're living out, how they've been constructed by your personal experience to give you a sense that you're that you'll gain gratification. And we can see that diversity in each other. We can all look at each other and say, that guy has a foot fetish, and that guy's a furry, and that guy's a thisy, and that guy's a thatty. And you can just see all these orientations of obsessions, and what kind of things, what kind of ideas um, make you feel um, powerful, or um, there's probably a better word, but where you gain a sense of this control, or of this the idea that this is the thing that will make you you know but I'm just saying, you just live them as fantasies anyway. You can just live them as thoughts and ideas. And we much of our some of us can spend most of our life just doing a kind of masturbating with either ambitions or even your sexual identity. It can all just be a perceived idea of a life that you're living, and that it's you're not really doing anything. It's what you've added to what you're doing that makes it into something, because you know what the secret agenda is. It's not just a hallway you're walking down, because you've made it into something else, kind of a thing. So you're gaining much of your gratification playing in your own thoughts of how you're manipulating other people's perception, and that by manipulating their perception you gained ego points because you look like you did something you didn't do, or what I mean. It's all these, but it's all psychology. It's just all bullshit. And why would you advocate creating another bug, creating another thing to be programmed by the environment to have some stupid foot fetish, or to have some control fetish, or some other fetish that needs gratifying, and living some fake life in some creepy, sloppy, crude world? And you can see the crude, sloppy world we live in. The waste of it all. That's what it's doing more than it's doing anything else. It's just wasting so much potential. So many people are just left behind, so to speak, as brains, because we don't have the infrastructure to feed them, physically or mentally, and we have no will to do the work to make people want more than a stupid fantasy, to watch some stupid fantasy television bullshit and live a life vicariously through the fake and phony drama they watch. Why would you sentence somebody to do that? Sentence somebody to be silly enough to give a shit, about watching next week's episode of I mean, that's creating a monster to me. It's a monstrosity of a thing to create. So don't do that. Don't advocate for that. Don't lie and keep talking as if you think you're worth it, because you know you're not. Quit defending what can't be defended rationally. Yes, play your game. Have your little fantasy in your head that you're winning. Go ahead. But don't, as part of the fantasy, say, I have to lie in reality, because if I don't lie in reality, I can't maintain my fantasy. Yeah, you can. You can still have your fantasy, okay, that you're a Jedi and you're winning. You don't have to lie into reality to say, well, that's the only way I can maintain this lie in my head, is to lie to the people, to lie to the world. You don't need to do that. To know that most of what you are is bullshit. Most of what you live for and what you desire and what you want and your dream accomplishment is just a pile of crap. And that if I gave it all to you, you'd be bored of it in 5 minutes. Well, 15. You'd be looking for the next payoff. You'd be pulling the arm on the bandit, putting another quarter, saying next fix, please. So that gets to the whole addiction thing, which is all this is. But anyway, okay, so there's an efilist video. It's been a while, and so I sort of forced this one, but I think it's okay. Yeah, it's enough of a video to be a video. Could have been better, but next time. I'll give you some flowers to end by. Yeah, these are kind of weird. They're supposed to be gladiolas, but they're some hybrid. And they come out like little flowers. Yeah, it's a flower. It's not really a gladiola. But the plants look just very same. And the bulbs look the same. But the flowers are different. So, yeah, breeding and such. Ah, moon. I don't know if you can see that. It's right there. Yeah, it's right in there somewhere. Right in there. Yeah. So anyway. I think it's enough. But yeah, it's a blah 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 blah. So, till next time, and such, and so forth and whatnot.